Here we go again. Harlequins podcast, episode 6, 2 words and 4 quarters. My name's Michael. As always, I'm sat here with my cousin Will. How are you, mate?
I'm good as always, particularly on a rugby weekend. Lots to talk about, and a very special guest on the pod this week as well. Our first ever guest, so it's really exciting times for us, isn't it, mate?
Mate, huge. We're going places. We're going places with this. I'm telling you. We'll jump straight in. Obviously, we're just off the back of another win. Two on the trot. 2 big away wins. Go on quickly. Thoughts? What we got for me?
I think I was almost disappointed, which is bizarre when you think about where we were 3 weeks ago. But I was disappointed not to get a bonus point win. Yeah. We saw it last week. We were sort of ruthless in attack, physical in defence, and we were the same again this week, just less clinical, I think. We nearly butchered that first try by overplaying. I think there's a fine line between playing the Quins way with a little bit of jouet and then overplaying when Brownie could have easily run that in. Really enjoyed the lack of celebration from Don Brandt and Marcus. Really good touch on the current climate there.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I really enjoyed that word jouet. Oh. When we play with a bit of jouet, I love that.
Having watched France this weekend as well, I thought Antoine Dupont pretty much summarises jouet. If jouet was a person, it's Antoine Dupont.
We got a bit of stick on Twitter for our French accents, but I thought it was all right, Antoine Dupont.
I was quite proud of mine.
Yeah, well, I'll have to ask the French teachers at school. Talking of kits, obviously, I had a bit of a dig online at a certain delivery company, which I won't. They'll remain nameless, but I will say it, yeah, Hermes, fair enough. The Quins stash, which obviously you did an unbelievable little spot on Love of Rugby. We'll give them a shout out as well. Love of Rugby, if you're listening.
Well done, Love of Rugby.
Unbelievable little sale on, and got loads of stuff, and it arrived just at half time. So me and my housemate, which I also bought a shirt for, he's now in the Quins family of fans. He's got a shirt, so we chucked them on at half time. Talking of Quins family, you gave a little shout out to Ollie Cohn and the Jolly Hog Boys pre-game yesterday on Instagram.
Yeah, if you've not tried a Jolly Hog sausage before, I recommend it. You probably have if you've been to a match day at the Stoop, but our old boy Ollie Cohn delivering on a match day, particularly with Six Nations and the Premiership going on. It was an awesome day yesterday for sport. Improved massively by the Jolly Hog, so go check them out as well.
Yeah, going back to the game, it was an interesting one off the back of Wasp because, like you say, I wanted another bonus point win, and when we came out the gates, quickly again. At half time, I'm thinking, right, bonus point. It's the minimum requirement. I tweeted it during the game. I said we've got to get bonus point wins now away, but we just seemed to drop off a little bit, and it just became a real scrappy affair. I thought the initial thing that stuck out to me was our defensive work rate. The line speed was, really up there. The intent to make a tackle was there. We didn't make every tackle. That's potentially unexpected, but I think just our work rate in defence seemed to be
outstanding.
Outstanding, and obviously Will Evans' work over the ball again, maybe not as influential as he was against Wasp, but he was still everywhere. And then our dominance at set piece, with Joe and Big Wilco on either side of the scrum, I thought we were right. Yeah, name a better duo, exactly.
No, for sure. I think one of the notable differences from sort of the last few weeks or so has been our defence. We look really tenacious, great line speed. I've noticed our wingers are sort of getting up in the line as well and pinching in, like avoiding the opposition to go wide. And I think Jerry's inherited defence since Guzzi's left, and he's done an awesome job. He's obviously brought an energy to it, and we almost look at defence now as our first method of attack. We're looking to get the ball. We're looking to disrupt their play. And Jerry even touched on it. We're most dangerous when it's unstructured attack.
That word jouet.
Yeah, for sure. Jouet. I mean, that unstructured attack comes from disrupting their defense and then playing on it's like a counter attack in football, isn't it? Like it's playing when everything's disrupted. And we're very, very good at that. And I think we owe Jerry a lot of credit there because I think he's obviously made the impact there that's turning defense into attack. And I was listening to him speak after the game. He's got real head coach vibes, hasn't he? He's got potential to fill a role there one day. I'm sure he's got plenty of learning to do still, and he'll be the first to admit that. But he's made real strides already for our club. And it was actually really interesting listening to him after the game where he was so focused on Leicester already, which I think is a really good mentality for our boys to have. Interesting to see how much he'd studied Leicester already as well. We talk about how we do one game at a time, but maybe once they've prepared the players for this current game week, they already turn their attention to next week, which again is interesting to see and hear. So, big fan of Jerry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like we say, it's a young coaching staff. We've said that before with Nev and and with Adam Jones. But I think, I really like the interview he did, and again, it's you spoke about maybe overplaying slightly for that first try, and I think absolutely right. But again, it's that unstructured attack. It's chaos ball, and maybe not chaos ball. That maybe is a step too far, but the ability for us to throw the ball around and attack space and go quickly at teams, especially when Danny gets the ball in his hands and plays off 9 and just goes at people. That unstructured nature of it, and with runners through the middle like Don Brown and big ball carriers, I think it's so exciting to watch. And it didn't pan out. It didn't pan out in the second half. Actually, my housemate made a really good point while I was watching it. Maybe in the second half, when obviously Marcus had gone off and captain Big Steph Luis had gone off. I don't know. He looked like he had a bit of a hamstring problem. I'm hoping that it was only sort of cramp. Hopefully it's not too serious. He went off and Joe went off. It just lost a little bit of structure. Maybe allowed Bath back into the game, but overall, we'll take a win. 2 wins on the bounce away from home.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the difference between last week and this week was after sort of 50, 60 minutes and we sort of had our foot on the throat of Wasps, we continued to push. We kept going. We kept scoring. We kept playing. This week, we just seem to lose a bit of that control. And I think a lot of that is down to not having Marcus on the field of play. He brings you sort of that structure as your 10 does. James Lang's a very accomplished reserve, but we're obviously losing him this season. And what it identified to me is that if we don't have Marcus, we're fairly short in the 10 department. So let's hope the rumours are true and he puts pen to paper. But also, we need to sort of have a look at what our squad is saying in that strength and depth, because there will be times where we lose him, particularly if he keeps playing the way he is and he'll get international call-ups. And we all know that the 10 position is crucial. So I just think we need a bit more depth there, quality depth as well, somebody that could be challenging him for his shirt. I thought Lang came on and played well, but naturally you lose a bit of flair.
I think it's quite. Yeah, it's definitely true. When he goes, and if he goes, whether it's internationally or whether it's hopefully not through injury, but I think it's quite a cool little way to look at it. If you think of our number 1 9 at the minute is someone like Danny Kerr. Our number 2 9 or number 3 9 is Scott Still, who's an international at Scotland, and Martin Nandajo is an 80 caps Argentine international. We haven't got that little backup from Marcus, and obviously Marcus is only young; he's not got any international caps yet. He will do. He's talked about so much at the minute, and we absolutely love talking about him because he's how well he's playing. But we might just need a little bit of reinforcement in that position.
You know who's a great shout that you mentioned as your signing, who would be brilliant for this?
Jimmy Gopperth.
Yeah. Not necessarily him, but a player of his ilk. Previous international player, regular in Premiership rugby now, can play 12 at the same time as Marcus. But when someone like that is missing, he's very assured to come in experience-wise head and pull the strings at 10. So I'm sure there's a few players out there like that would fit the bill. I don't know why I keep thinking about it in my head now, but I've got Quade Cooper in my head.
Quade Cooper,
the way we play.
Wow.
I don't think he'd want to come play second string, would he? But and perhaps he doesn't fit into 12 too nicely. But yeah, no, we're definitely looking for that kind of wiser head at 10 to come in and fill the boots when we need it.
Quade Cooper, wow, what a shout! I was thinking, when you said Jimmy Gopperth, I was thinking more along the lines of a Charlie Hodgson type or a
Toby Flood.
A Toby Flood type.
I think we're in the same territory here, aren't we? We just need to put our heads
you've gone big.
together.
You've gone big and gone with Quade Cooper. What a shout!
I don't think Quade Cooper's the right shout. I don't think he'd want to come play second fiddle in London. I think. I
reckon he'd enjoy a bit of the London life, Quade.
He would love the way we play, wouldn't he? He'd be awesome.
He would. No, mate. I think we've covered it really well. Then obviously we've got a huge game against Leicester next week at home. Our home form has been a little bit shaky. Obviously, we played Exeter and Bristol at home this season. Well, obviously two of the best sides in the Prem currently. But next week's massive for us, and hopefully we'll still be sitting in that top 4 by the time that rolls around. And talking of home games, we've got our first guest coming on the pod. Will and I had some chat with him this week on Twitter, and we asked him to come on, and it was really cool that he did. Had some amazing things to say, and we had Mike Bovill, the Harlequins Stadium Announcer, come on and chat to us.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, didn't we? It was fascinating listening to Mike and hearing some of his stories and what his match day routine is. Looking forward to getting back out there in the Stoop soon and hopefully hearing him again. Any Quins fans listening to this, I hope this brings a bit of nostalgia or a bit of escapism for you, but some really fascinating insight from Mike, and I can't wait to share it with you.
So Mike, welcome firstly.
Lovely to be here, gents. Thanks for asking me along today.
It's obviously our first guest is something that we've been sort of toying with and thinking about, and we obviously sort of connected on Twitter and thought, oh, that'd be a really cool sort of
I'm
definitely a really cool little sort of start off the podcast. So do you just want to give us like a little introduction onto what you do sort of around the club and sort of what your general sort of introduction was to the club, whether it was from a fan perspective or whether you were working in a sort of different media chain or whatever it is, and how you sort of got to being the guy on the end of the microphone and announcing the games?
Yeah, sure. So I've been the pitch announcer at Harlequins in theory, this would be my 4th season, although I'm yet to make an appearance at the Stoop like the rest of us, sadly, so far in this campaign. But it all started in 2017 when a friend of mine, Nick Heath, who is one of the Harlequins community ambassadors as well, he was the pitch announcer for a season, 2016-17, and we were, hate to name drop like this, but we happened to be at the first Lions test in New Zealand, in Auckland. Wow. Sitting next to each other, and we're mates. We've known each other for a long time. And he said that he wasn't going to carry on doing it anymore. And I was actually TalkSport Radio's rugby correspondent for a long time. So I used to be very lucky and spend my weekends covering in some national matches and things like that. So I would have been at Twickenham for the Six Nations. But I've moved into more of a management role at TalkSport. So weirdly had my weekends free for the first time ever. And I live in Twickenham and followed rugby for a long, long time. And I always thought, do you know what? A job I'd really like to do is to be a pitch announcer. I'm a massive Arsenal fan as well. Whenever I used to go to the Emirates Stadium, I thought, wouldn't it be great to be the pitch announcer at the Emirates? And for a long time, I thought, yeah, it'd be brilliant to be the pitch announcer at somewhere like the Stoop at Harlequins. Fantastic club, local club to me. I'd really like to do that. And Nick just said, yeah, I'm not going to do it again next season. So I asked him to put me in touch with the people at the club who were making those decisions, thinking they're bound to have someone lined up by now and someone in place, and they hadn't. So went along for a couple of interviews and they gave me the job. I remember my first game was a pre-season friendly against Jersey, and I was getting heckled. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was already getting heckled by we had a little. The very first thing that I did, we did this kind of quiz with a couple of fans, and one of them was this 9-year-old girl, and she didn't win, and I started getting booed straight away by some of the Quins faithful. I thought, oh, this is a good start. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. But it's been brilliant. I absolutely love it. I love going there, and it's been horrible these last, I was going to say a few months, but it's the best part of a year now. Just that one game back in September that we were allowed in. Because I don't do the pitch announcing when for the games behind closed doors. There has to be someone from within the club, and I'm only employed by Quins on match days and for events and things like that. So they have the very brilliant Joe Yates Round, who does it on match days at the moment, but cannot wait. We were all set to do it in December for the European games, and it all went out the window again. So one day, maybe before the end of the season, we'll be back, hopefully.
But I say, because I went to that test event at the Stoop, and when we played Bath, and I sit in the south stand anyway, and it was really weird because we were all obviously coming in at certain times, and everyone's sat in their seat, and it was not a sort of great game starting. It was so depressing, obviously, because I'd been a season ticket holder for a couple of years, and some of the games I'd been to, we had that Sarries game, which was amazing, and some of the European games, and we had a couple of real big wins just in some of the Friday night games, and I'd been to a lot of them. And then I'm sat there, we're looking sort of across with Twickenham in the background. It's all empty. It's just, it's a pretty depressing place to be when it's like that, especially because we lost on the day. But there we go. Next question was, obviously, if you're only employed on sort of like a 1 day a week, I guess basis with the club, what's your sort of pre-match game routine like? Is it get to the ground early, coffee, do your sort of do your due diligence and check out your names and all that kind of stuff, or have you got a bit more loose structure to it?
No, so on the Thursday or Friday, I'll be sent a kind of a running order and a script for what we're going to do. There are lots of things, that we have to do for the club, like ticket offers and that kind of thing, promotional things, and making sure the club shop's open and there's 20% off this week for various items, etc., etc. So I get all that. We'll have had a chat in the week with the production team, who it's without getting too geeky and technical. Harlequins use an outside production team to come in on match days and produce like the match day experience. So not just me, but obviously the big screen and all the things like if there are ever pyrotechnics, that kind of stuff, everything around that, all the music that goes around the stadium is done by a production company. And then there's a liaison with a couple of people at the club who are part of who are in charge of the match day experience. So they'll send me through a running order of what we're doing and when. I'll get to the ground. So we go live when the gates open. That's 2 hours before kickoff, and I'm normally at the ground sort of 2 hours before that. So good 4 hours before a match starts, to make sure that we go through the script. We know what we're doing and when. If there's anything like a minute's silence or something pre-kickoff that has to be arranged, we'll make sure that we rehearse that before the gates open and all that kind of thing. So there's probably a lot more to it than you realise. Going through the halftime games, one thing I never thought I'd miss during a global pandemic, but the human hamster wheels that we have at halftime in matches. I really miss the human hamster wheels, which are my favourite thing ever. I just absolutely love it when we get to do those on match days. When they say, "Oh, it's going to rain," or "It's too windy," it was too windy once to use the human hamster wheels. It's like, oh, such a shame. But so we go through all of that, and then the really weird thing is being done kind of like 5 minutes after the end of the game, which is great because I up until this summer I lived in Twickenham, just by Twickenham Green, so it was a lovely little stroll through the town to get to the stoop, and then you walking back, might stop off in one or two pubs on the way back. And
go on, give him a shout out. Where's your post game stop?
Great question.
Well, my local was the Prince Albert, which is just off Twickenham Green. So you got
lovely.
the Albert and the Blucher on Twickenham Green. I'm good mates with the landlord, Stuart Green, the landlord of the Cabbage Patch. So obviously that was another favourite as well. That's more for international match days. But yeah, the Prince Albert was my local, and I've now moved to Teddington, so a little bit further away. Not that they're open anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. But so I live in Teddington, so I was in Strawberry Hill in my last year of uni. So I used to go from Strawberry Hill and walk to the back roads of Strawberry Hill, and I might stop at the Blucher before, and I'd meet a mate, and then we'd go over, and I sort of dot all the way down through back through Strawberry Hill. That's one of the things I actually really really miss about game day, is walking back and having a drink and chatting to people.
Friends with the landlord's very good connection.
Yeah, exactly. Well. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, it's just such a shame that obviously my match day routine is probably a bit different to most fans, and I don't get to enjoy that pre-match, the fun and games and meeting up for a drink before walking to the ground. But I still used to love it. Walking in, getting ready on match days. Match days really were my favorite days. There's nothing better. It's such good fun. I really enjoy what I do. And to have been without it these last 10, 11 months has been horrific, absolutely horrible. So I just can't wait till we can all get back there. But it was like, if I couldn't do it before a game, I used to love doing it after a game and kind of walking back through with crowds, and just going and have a drink. And you feel like a fan. I do feel like I am a fan of the club. I am a fan of Harlequins. I get really emotional when they win. I get really emotional when they lose as well. So, which I hope you can hear in my voice on match days. But moments like it was our last home game. Weirdly, my last game at the Stoop before the first lockdown was the England v Wales women's match, which took place there in early March. I think our last Premiership game, or our last Quins game, was February the 29th. Was it the Exeter game?
Wow.
Which, of course, was that amazing last-minute win against Exeter. Another fantastic performance. And if you told me then that it would be the best part of a year, or you might only go about once in a year, oh, dear me. I mean, I don't think anyone quite saw it coming then, did they?
No, not at all. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You can't beat the buzz of a match day, regardless of sort of what your role is within that. And I'm sure everyone at the club will feel very different at different parts of the day as the pressure points come about in terms of what your role is. Do you ever get nervous before a big match day? And what's kind of the best atmosphere you've experienced on a match day? Have you got any sort of standout moments? You touched on Exeter. Any others that stand out?
Yeah, obviously those big matches, particularly against Saracens and against Exeter, are the ones that stand out. There's nothing like the crowd getting behind. being an Arsenal fan, I know that people criticise Arsenal fans for being really quiet at the Emirates Stadium, and I know that sometimes some fans of other clubs, that's occasionally an accusation that's laid at Quins as well. But when you've got a full house and it's a really tight game and you just get that roar. What I love is when the referee makes a mistake and it just seems to be that really sets the crowd going, and they just honour the officials and the team that gives the team a list. Was there a game against it was Bath, I think, where the crowd really got on the backs of the referees, and I think it did us a massive favour in a couple of tight decisions. So there was one TMO where I was thinking, nah, he's not going to. The Bath squad are trying it. Eventually got disallowed, but the crowd were going crazy, and nothing beats that. Absolutely nothing beats that.
I've got a couple of very close mates at uni that are big Arsenal fans, and they'll be pretty flat with the accusation of a flat crowd at Arsenal. And I've got a mate at school who's a big Arsenal fan as well. But I definitely remember there were times when I reckon even in that test event at the Stoop, and we played a game against Gloucester that we actually ended up winning sort of fairly comfortably. But I sit in the sort of bottom corner of the South Stand, and I go by myself, and it's really fun. And obviously something goes wrong, and I'm sort of sitting there not really talking to anyone. I've got the ref link in, but then when people start stomping their feet on the base of the South Stand, I can't help myself. I miss that massively. Talking of sort of atmospheres and those big games, who are the players since you've been at the club? Obviously, it's really easy to go for your big England names, but is there anyone that really stands out when you read that name out sort of pre-game as they're running on? Which one gets the biggest, or in your eyes gets the most buzz?
Well, look, everyone's got their favourites, haven't they? Mike Brown, Danny Kerr. It's so sad that we haven't been able to give Chris Robshaw a send off, because he's the one where you just get that electric roar. Joe Marler, obviously. Yeah. And so I started my first year at Quins was also when Marcus Smith made his debut. And it's great to see kind of those new heroes coming through now. Yeah. It's so important. I don't know if you saw the story in today's Mail on Sunday, but hopefully looks like he's signing
whispers and rumours, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So let's hope so. As someone pointed out yesterday, why would you go to Bath? Why would you?
Particularly after yesterday's result.
Exactly. So Marcus Smith is just someone who gets the crowd going, and of course Alex Dombrandt. I mean, just that the players that have Quins in their DNA, just with the way that they play the game, and the crowd respond to that massively.
Yeah, I think the thing with those two players as well, and this is something that fans in any team or any sport really appreciate, is that they look hungry every single game, don't they? That they're always in it to win it. They're always trying to rally the troops. And I think as a fan, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing that from your players. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that those two are becoming fan favourites very, very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And they just, even in matches that we lose, you notice, I think all you want as a fan is to know that the 15 players on the pitch gave absolutely everything, and you can kind of accept a loss if that's been the case. It's when you see players who don't put a shift in. And there have been a few over the years, but you just know with someone like Alex Dombrandt, he's not going to leave anything out there at all. He's going to be absolutely blowing by the end of the game, because he's given it all for the cause, which is, fans love that.
It's one of the things I'm sort of really looking forward to, actually, with the next sort of crop of players. Guys like, obviously, the easy ones to look at, Smith, Dombrandt, and Joe Marchant, but guys like sort of Hugh Tizard, and I remember Jack Musk making his debut in the European Cup game against Claremont, a guy that's 18 years old and has just played 80 minutes against a European giant. And although we ended up obviously on the losing side on the day, he was unbelievable. And he's not played a lot of rugby this year, but someone like Brett Heron, I remember that sort of chip and chase over the top at Claremont, ball bouncing into his hands and sort of runs 40 yards under the sticks. And then the next game, his name sort of propped up. There's a little bit more noise when he obviously got announced, which is really nice for that kind of those kind of guys. And that's devastating. I mean, me and Will tweeted this week from our account saying hopefully we get Chris back in for a sort of testimonial game, whatever you call it. We'll have the San Diego Legion against Harlequins in a game, and hopefully we can get you on the end of the mic for that, because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind an away day as well. Go over to the States.
They're playing. They're having to play. They're not allowed to play at home at the moment, so they've moved to Las Vegas. So that wouldn't be. In fact, Nick Heath, who we talked about earlier, he volunteered for the job of their pitch announcer. Yeah. Cheeky 6 months in Vegas. It would kill you. Oh dear, no.
I can't imagine many Quins when they list their number one away days. I mean, we've spoken about it a little bit, and some give you the likes of Toulouse away, or some of these French towns, somewhere in Italy or Munster. I can't imagine at the top of many lists there'd be there'd be a Las Vegas away day on the cards. But
changing face of rugby.
If it's on the cards, you can sign us both up, absolutely for sure. I was thinking, obviously, a bit more sort of deeply involved with the club. Not just the match day. You say, is there anyone in the club, maybe aside from the players, that is that well looked on by everyone else? Is there anyone that you've sort of met through the job that everyone has, massive respect for, everyone looks up to, a sort of internal beating heart, as it were, of the club? Anyone that you've met sort of in your time?
Great question. Well, the unsung hero, I think. Let's put a spotlight on them for sure. Yeah, good question, Mike.
Well, it is a good question, and I think, unfortunately, it's a very difficult one to answer at the moment because of the upheaval internally, which is tricky for me to talk about, really, and because I've been on the outside throughout all of this, and since lockdown, and a lot of the people that I work with just aren't at the club anymore. There's been a lot of people have left, either moved on to other roles, or have simply, the jobs aren't there anymore. Which makes it a really, really tough time, and it's going to take a long time, not just for Harlequins, but for all the Premiership clubs to get over this. I think the club has done an amazing job of getting the games on for a start, and making it look as much as possible as if it's business as usual, because it's anything but. And the decisions that have had to have been made to keep the club alive and to keep it solvent during this period, with no fans coming in during the gate, huge hit on resources. And I think Quins will be fine in the long term, but in the short term, it's been very, very difficult for a lot of people. So a lot of the guys that I used to see on match days, when and if we go back, when we go back, and be positive about it, when we go back, a lot of them aren't going to be there, and that's going to be very difficult. So it's going to be a hugely different experience. One thing I can say is that everybody at the club loves working for the club. It is a place of work, and there are always tensions and difficulties within that, but everyone, bearing in mind, I was only really going on match days and occasionally at other times, but everyone I was involved with and everyone I worked with, they were just really nice people, really good people, and really good representatives and ambassadors for Harlequins, and as you would expect, because it's a brilliant club.
I think it's really nice to hear that from the outside. Obviously, Will and I, on the outside as fans, but obviously with Owen Eastwood coming in and all this chat about culture, and obviously Will did an amazing piece on it in the last couple of episodes about big cultures, and if there's people like that in the club, that's only that's huge for Quins to hear that, and for Quins fans to hear that they've got people like that working in the club, because that just makes it feel that like you say, in the short term it's going to be, of course, it's going to be a struggle, but hopefully long term the club's going to be in a better place. If and as you say, when we all get back in.
Great. I've got one, and I'm hoping we find like a gem in this question. So obviously, being a stadium announcer, you're sort of based by the tunnel. Have you got any behind the scenes stories of anyone sort of slipping over in the tunnel? Any funny moments or any sort of gold dust stories that you can share with us that we perhaps wouldn't see on the outside as fans?
Oh, that is a really good question. I mean, obviously, Joe Marler is the one who keeps us constantly on our toes, but very much entertained. And you don't know what you're going to get when he's either on the bench itching to go on, or is coming off the pitch after 60 minutes. And I've hosted a few events with Joe over the years and interviewed him a lot, in my time before the club. And he's an absolutely brilliant guy, but you've got to get him on the right day. So you're on your guard when Joe's around, and 99 times out of 100 he's absolutely fine, and then on the odd occasion you just get him. It's just such a privilege to stand and watch a game of rugby, a game of professional rugby, from where I do, in the tunnel, next to the replacements. I don't have to call them game changers anymore. I think That's been ditched. As was one of Gussie's last acts, was to get rid of game changers. So I think they're impact players at the moment, but we'll see what happens when we get back to the Stoop. But you sit there you're standing there with the replacements, and you're so close to the action. And, on BT Sports, fantastic coverage of the Premiership. They mic up the coaches and all that kind of thing during games, and you see all that process going on. There's always a camera which isn't looking at the game; it's looking at it's basically trying to pick out interesting things to look at. And I remember Mike Brown got taken off. He was really unhappy about it, and there's a camera just trained right on him. And he swore very loudly and chucked his water bottle right at it. I don't know if that got picked up on the cameras or not, but it's a game. It's a balance between making the sport entertaining to watch, which you have to, and rugby's got a lot of problems with gaining new audiences and presenting itself as a modern sport. But at the same time, the intrusion on players who've physically given everything on the pitch, and then they got a camera shoved in their face. Most of the time, they take it very well. Occasionally, it balls over a little bit.
He had that sort of tag as someone that's Mr. Grumpy at times, but especially sort of some of his England days, I remember him being sort of real scrappy. But I think that's the reason that a lot of Quins fans love him, because he's one of those players that will 80 minutes of scrap and heart. And then we touched on it sort of briefly, but I would say hopefully, I mean, what are we now? Early Feb, maybe not this season. Hopefully, come September, we'll all get back in with full grounds and packed houses. But what's the best thing about what you do? What's the number one thing that you love doing as a Quins announcer?
Oh, it's that final whistle where we've won a tight game, or the crowd is absolutely buzzing, and it's not the crowd reacting to me, it's me reacting to the crowd. When I feel myself getting carried away with that roar at the final whistle, I mean, just same just before kickoff as well, is that feeling that this is going to be a great day, and kind of my job is to, not that they need it, not that you need it, that any encouragement for those big match days, but just to help get behind the team, and knowing that you're kind of the roar of the crowd and the roar from the microphone is helping to give the team a lift before kickoff and help us to victory. That's just all of it. I absolutely love all of it. But the final whistle, when the score's gone your way and you get that massive, massive cheer, it's just brilliant.
Straight to the Prince Albert.
And then, exactly. Off to the pint of Peroni, please, Ken. Off to the Albert. Thanks very much.
I was saying we did say that obviously Joe Marler is a Sussex boy, as am I. I did say that if we ever got him on the podcast, I promised him a beer in the 6 Albert. So I'm gonna have to start a tab now. I promised him a beer in the 6 Bells, sorry, in Chiddingly, but I'm gonna have to start a tab in the Albert now. Hopefully, all the three of us can get in there for a drink after a game in the next sort of few months or so. But no, honestly, Mike, that's unbelievable to have you on, and it's even just sort of hearing a voice is almost that a little thing. Even if I shut my eyes, I can almost sit and pretend that I'm actually sat in the South Stand watching the boys play. But no, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. Will and I really appreciate it, and that was awesome to chat.
Thanks very much for having me, boys. Really enjoyed it.
What a man! How'd you get into a role just by saying I'm going to be a stadium announcer? Just said to his mate, "Oh, I want to be a stadium announcer," and here we are. Well, I'm very glad he's done it. Fascinating talking to Mike, real stand-up guy. Really hope we get back in the Stoop soon and see him in person and share a beer or two. That's for sure.
No, it was really cool when we had some. You can tell he loves the club, and maybe he might be missing it more than other people at the minute, because he made a really good point about it's not him revving up the crowd, it's him just reacting to the noise of the fans in the Stoop, and how lucky he is just to sort of sit in the tunnel and be in amongst everything's going on, and he. It must be such a cool thing for him to do, and you can tell he loves the club and how much he's missing it. So, no, it was really cool to get his insight. I thought it was some of the things that he spoke about was really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that story about Mike Brown and Joe Marler, sort of whenever you get them on a bad day, I think that's really important for us fans to remember, is that these professional rugby players, not just our club as well, in fact, all professional athletes, they're not robots. They do have emotion. They are human. I think it was really fascinating to hear him talk about that and how. I mean, if you've just played a game of rugby, you probably don't want a camera in your face, and maybe we take that for granted. So, yeah, interesting to hear that point of view as well, which is perhaps something fans don't get. But when you're in that tunnel environment, you see it raw and real. Really, fascinating stories.
That's what we've got time for this week. I think great week. Big win at the weekend. Massive opportunity next week at home against Leicester. Go follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Harlequins Pod. Get in touch. Drop us a line. And from all of us here, just the two, take it easy. Will, I'll see you soon, mate.
Cheers, mate. Speak soon.